Welcome to TAA Conversations on Art and Peace. I'm Sam Lohman, president of the Art Association, a Swiss nonprofit dedicated to encouraging peaceful engagement through art in all its forms. Our guest today is Michael McKay, an international communications advisor, interviewer, and broadcaster centered on dialogue, public communication, and trust. Michael is the founder of McKay's, a Swiss-based international communication and public affairs consultancy, where he advises organizations and leaders on reputation, public responsibility, and communication in complex and often sensitive environments. In addition, Michael has been a lecturer at the University of Geneva, the University of Fribourg, and Cambridge University, and has appeared as keynote speaker at countless international forums. Many know Michael as the host of the McKay Interview on World Radio Switzerland, a program accessible worldwide as a thoughtful, long interview platform with guests from across public life, culture, business, and society. Michael's work relates directly to TAA's mission as it demonstrates how conversation, when approached with care and curiosity, can create understanding, bring people closer, and encourage inner, community, and global peace. Michael, welcome.
Dan, thank you. It's really wonderful to see you again. And thank you so much for the honor of being on your show. This is the first time I've ever been interviewed. So I managed to avoid that for the last 20 or 30 years. But it's a pleasure and privilege to be with you.
Well, it's an honor to have you with us. And over your career, what has listening taught you about trust and understanding?
Sam, I have to be honest with you. I don't think I've been a very good listener over the years. I think I talk too much. I know because I had close friends from my student days who've told me, now that we've got older together and we've been friends for 60 years, that I was a big mouth when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And that shows you the closeness of the relationship, that they would tell me that now after 60 years. My God, Michael, you were insufferable when you were a young student. I've tried to learn two things. First of all, I tried to ask myself, why have I not been a particularly good listener? My wife even now tells me after more than 50 years of marriage that I don't listen enough. And the conclusion I've come to, I don't think I'm an arrogant person, is that I started my professional life, you know this, as a school teacher. And when you're teaching particularly children, you always have to keep talking, particularly if things begin to dry up a little bit, if that's the right expression, in the classroom, because sometimes the children are not particularly good at articulating themselves. And so I've, over the years, had to teach myself to rein back and not interrupt. And of course, the worst thing is to attempt to finish the sentence which you think is in the mouth of the person that you're talking to, because invariably it isn't. And then you make a complete fool of yourself and you annoy the person you're talking to. Even though I'm getting older, I think becoming a good listener, as far as I'm concerned, is still work in progress.
I've never known you as anything but a good listener, but I think that the type of reflection that you're sharing with us, the type of wisdom that we acquire with time, and our willingness to listen to others and accept criticism, of course, is the first step towards addressing the matter. But once again, I have to say, I didn't know you in those early school years, and I've always known you as a team player and a good listener. But I do respect your willingness to reflect and for sharing that insight. I'm sure that it resonates with many of our listeners. How can conversation rise to the level of art?
But I've thought about this, and I'm not sure that good conversation is an art form. I would put it more in the camp of an acquired skill. And the reason I say that is because one of the things I do is I help people improve their public speaking and presentation. I mean standing on a forum, on a stage, in front of 10, 15, 20, could be 100, could be 1,000 people, and speaking to them. And as I always tell my students, and some of these are senior bankers, politicians in Geneva, and others, there are very, very few people in my experience who enjoy standing in front of people and speaking in public, right? And those who do enjoy it because over the years they've worked at improving the skill. And so they're well prepared before they step out onto that public stage. And so I've had in the classroom many times people who really are not very good. They're either shy, they also have a very poor command of English, or at least they think they do. Although, frankly, you don't need to be fluent in English to give a good English speech, right? I'll give you a story. One of my clients is a multinational corporation with probably 50, 60, 70 nationalities working under the roof at the headquarters in Geneva. And I used to run internal in-house academies for them on a whole range of issues about their industry. Well, the company would invite people at VP level to come and talk to the group, who were mainly at director level. So that's a level below VP in this company. And these people, these VPs, would be Europeans, would be Asians, would be North Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, people from the United States. And we always, at the end of the 4 days, we send them a questionnaire to mark the speakers. And I kid you not, Sam, so often the people who scored worse on the quality of the presentation were native speakers of English, and particularly the British, and particularly the British who had strong regional accents from the northeast of England, Newcastle on Tyne, from Glasgow, from London, particularly the eastern part of London. And the people who scored best were often the Japanese, because they spoke quite slowly. They had a relatively limited vocabulary, but what they had, they articulated clearly. And so the audience, which was an international audience, could understand them best. And I thought, well, look at that. You would think the complete opposite. What it shows is that just because it's your mother tongue doesn't mean that you can handle it well.
I think both of us share this experience. We have, throughout our careers, found ourselves in countries where English was not the native language. So there are some fundamental rules. If you're empathetic and you listen and you adapt. For instance, colloquial expressions are not necessarily appreciated.
Especially sports expressions.
Well,
I remember once being in a meeting with an American colleague who used to use this expression the whole 9 yards. And I said to him once, what does that actually mean? You know, and he was quite surprised that I didn't know what that meant, you know.
Well, there you go. And then likewise, accents. And
yeah.
I think one has to make it take a particular effort to speak the language, whatever it might be, in a way that that softens the accents, in order to be able to have a bilateral conversation. I do believe that conversation, the after-dinner speech or talk, storytelling, I would bring that into the realm of art. And of course, I've always appreciated the manner in which you communicate. I've had the opportunity, the privilege to sit in the audience on many occasions. And of course, listen to your interviews. I think most would agree with me. The end result of your time on the job has made you a gifted speaker. At the Art Association, we focus on the artist's role in the process of encouraging peaceful engagement. And you have placed yourself, whether it's in front of a defined audience or on the airways, blasted internationally, or in front of the interviewee, you are encouraging inner peace, perhaps in yourself, in the interviewee by harnessing the information, and then, of course, amongst the community that might not otherwise have access to the experience, wisdom, knowledge that you're able to impart through the interviewee. Can you recall an interview where dialogue uncovered unexpected common ground?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I remember one in particular where I finished the interview with a huge admiration for my guest. It's about 10 years ago, at the time when there was a huge amount of television and news coverage of migrants coming from North Africa and landing in Lampedusa and other of the islands in the Mediterranean. And I had the privilege of being introduced to a man, admiral level. Now you can imagine that with the coastline that is, their navy is quite substantial. He talked very, very deeply, very passionately about the responsibility, particularly for naval people, whether merchant naval people or state naval people, to observe the law of the sea. This is quite pertinent today with what's going on in the Southern Caribbean. But somebody told me of him, but he, if you know the expression, turned a Nelson's eye to an instruction that came to him from government about picking up migrants who were in the water. Now, the law of the sea says, doesn't matter what color, what race, if you're in the sea, enemy, friend, you rescue them. And you're a lawyer, you know that. But the word came from quite high up. Just forget it, don't bother. But being an admiral, he had command of ships. And he sent some of his ships to help people, save people. And I thought to myself, you know, it would have been so easy for him just to turn the other way and say, okay, I'll go along with that. But he didn't. He chose basically to put his own reputation and neck on the line. In fact, he had a higher reputation, if you like, to his God, and he was guided more by conscience than by diktat. And when I finished the interview, it just came to me what a privilege it was to meet a man like that and to ask myself the really telling question, what would I have done in that situation? Would I have taken the instruction, or would I have done and given a different instruction to the men who were under my command?
Thank you for sharing such a topical subject and focusing on a dilemma. We have an example of storytelling right here. You're imparting insight that we wouldn't otherwise have of a real life experience, which can be used as a reference point when the subject is brought up. Question, Michael, do you believe that art, in this case, the art of conversation, can foster inner community and global peace?
Yes, I mean, I think it's very important to talk to one another. I was listening to a program about the corrosive effect of mobile phones in schools, that young people, they're just not talking to each other and they're losing that ability to communicate. They might send lots of messages. So digitally, they might be extremely fast and quick, but articulately, they're not very good. And so if that's happening to young people, these are habits which will stay with them as they get older. In order to use your expression, raise conversation to the level of art, the first thing is, of course, listening well. The second thing is demonstration to your conversation partner that you are listening well. And in my experience, the best evidence of that is that you ask an intelligent question. You don't go off at a tangent just to make your own point. And then the other important thing, but this is also a cultural thing, and you know this well because you travel quite extensively, is whether or not you look at people and how you look at people. And depending on the part of the world, the length of time you hold on to someone's gaze. And if you're an international traveler, then you need to learn that. I think that is, again, a learned skill, just to make your guest or your conversation partner feel comfortable. And then, of course, facial expression that you use. And as I mentioned before, don't try and finish the sentence that's in somebody that you think is in somebody's mouth. And I think the last thing is in conversation, body language. Depends on the situation of the conversation. I mean, if it was a formal conversation, then, as I always used to say to kids in school, sit up straight. Don't lounge. Lounge gives the wrong impression, unless you're sitting in a club and the Chesterfield is nice and comfortable, etc., etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But these sorts of things, you see why, in the way that I'm explaining to you, why I have some ambivalence towards whether it's an art form or an acquired skill. I can argue both ways. Do you see what I'm saying, Sam?
You know, we enter this world with varying levels of sensitivity and natural ability in this area as well. You have been a student of communication as well as a mentor in communication, and every aspect throughout the whole process. But yes, I've had the privilege and opportunity to do my share of public speaking and interact with public speakers, leaders of governments and industry, and so on and so forth. But so much of what I learned is, as they say, was at the kitchen table listening to my mother. Show respect, always act as a guest, and be sensitive. And certainly every one of those items that you listed are excellent rules, which take us to the next question. What message would you share with the Art Association's International Community of Artists for Peace?
Simple things, just a few messages. Talk, but don't shout. Listen more. And if you think you've listened enough, listen even more. And then something which, from the part of the world where you spent a lot of time, Dubai, I used to go there a lot back in the 1990s. And I used to stay in the Intercon hotel in Dubai. And they had a custom in those days to leave on the pillow or the bedside a bookmark, which had a quotation in Arabic on one side or the translation in English on the other side. I don't know if they still do, but there's one which I still have somewhere behind me, which is simple. Speak only when your words are more eloquent than your silence.
Michael, thank you.
My pleasure.
Today's conversation is a reminder that peace is often shaped in how we listen, speak, and our willingness to engage with others. Your work across communication, education, broadcasting shows how the art of dialogue can create space for understanding, trust, peace, values that sit at the heart of the Art Association. Thank you for being part of TAA's Conversations on Art and Peace.
Thank you, Sam. Privileged to be with you.
That's a take.